I was thinking about this the last couple of weeks. I was talking to CFL closers, and he wants to do more curation on threads. So I gave him a little Leo Power delegation. But I've been thinking a lot about how do we encourage people to curate more broadly and more essentially just curate more on threads, because I think there's a big lack of curation there. And I think a lot of it has to do with us being trained to curate in a certain way when it comes to Hive. I think a lot of people have gotten, I think a lot of people have just gotten familiar and comfortable and, habitual about upvoting long form posts or just using a trail or an auto voter of some kind. But threads, obviously, auto voting isn't really much of a thing. I mean, you still have trails, but that being said, I mean, auto voting isn't a thing on threads. So when you look at like the average blog post on Hive, or at least like let's say from the trending page, you'll likely have anywhere from like 150 to 1,000 unique accounts voting on any given blog post. But if you actually looked at most of those votes, I mean, like 90% of them are within the first 5 minutes of the blog post going live. So we know that it's pretty much mostly auto voters. I think the number of manual curation that actually happens across the entire blockchain is relatively low. And that's something that I've been wanting to change for a long time, both for long form and for threads. So I've been really trying to think of ways that we can improve that. I think a few different things. Making smaller votes more rewarding is something I've been thinking about, but that requires a pretty dramatic change, like to the fundamentals of how curation works on Inleo, and with the Leo token. So that's something that's been on my mind. And then also, I think the more practical and immediately applicable option would be implementing something on the leaderboard. So obviously I keep talking about the leaderboard because that's going to be one of the next major features we roll out. But, having some sort of curation calculation that's not just based on, because right now, if you look at the current leaderboard, it basically just takes the total number of upvotes, and that counts as like that's how it organizes people essentially. But that doesn't factor in, like auto votes and whatnot. And I've been thinking about a new calculation for calculating the points that you earn for being a curator and how you get ranked on the leaderboard. And what I think we're going to do is some sort of calculation where it looks at not only the number of votes that you cast, so it's going to look for, if you cast a lot of votes, but it's also going to look at, how diverse are those votes in terms of unique accounts that you're voting on. And then I also want to have some element of time. So, did you just vote on 100 different accounts in the first 5 minutes that they posted, a blog post or a thread? Or did you vote 100 different accounts, but the timing of your vote is very diverse. So let's say that, some of them were done at 5 minutes, some were done at 10 minutes, some were done at 3 hours, some were done at 3 days. And by using these metrics, we're able to create like essentially a diverse curation score, both in terms of time and unique accounts. So I think that's going to be a really key element of the leaderboard, and then possibly having something that can even attach a score to curation on threads and a curation on a blog post. So I think there's a lot of creative ways that we can calculate the curation abilities of people, and actually look for manual curation over automated. So obviously, right now I would say just a lot of curation is either automated or non-existent. And by changing that on the leaderboard, we could potentially incentivize the change, because at the end of the day, everything in life, especially, when it comes to crypto and blockchain, and the Hive blockchain and Inleo, everything is based on incentive structures. So you really need to focus on, what kind of incentive structures are in place and what are those incentive structures actually encouraging people to do. And I think up to this point, most of the incentive structures are around setting up auto voters and just laying back and letting curation happen for you. Not only because it's easier and requires less time, but actually because it earns you the most rewards. So we really need to think about how can we make manual curation more valuable than auto curation, or essentially just setting and forgetting it on a trail. So we really need to spend some time and think about how to change that incentive model. And I think it's a really difficult thing to do, but definitely doable.
Do you think, Cal, do you think that'll happen somewhat organically though? Because think about this, right? As users onboard to Inleo, right? A lot of these users aren't so much familiar with the Hive blockchain, right? And the Hive blockchain might not become their operating basis. Like we all, come from Hive blockchain first, and then obviously Inleo, so we understand that, and we understand that there's auto voter options out there and things like that. But for people, especially like Leo infra accounts and stuff, where they don't even either use their keys or care about it or really function on the Hive blockchain, naturally they're probably not going to be doing auto voting just because they don't even realize it's a thing. um, I know that doesn't solve the problem, but I think that influence will actually create some of an organic change in trends of less auto voting overall.
Yeah, I do think that bringing new blood into the system is generally a good thing for a lot of reasons. And that can kind of incite the culture change that we're looking for. And there's a little bit of a you know, you obviously you still want to build this incentive structure for the existing user base because that's still going to be the majority of users for a long time. But it's also a little bit of a chicken and egg problem because when we invite new people onto the platform, we don't want to show them that like the majority of threads have 0 votes on them, and are earning very little rewards. You want to have we really want to have a more diverse vote spread, even if we don't have any new blood. Because that's ultimately, again, like chicken and egg, like that's ultimately what's going to lead to more people coming in, is seeing a lot of activity, seeing a lot of rewards flowing around, and seeing people be very active. So yeah, I do agree with you though that generally the new people coming in aren't going to have these kind of preconceived notions of what to do. It's almost like, if you adopt a dog that's 5 years old versus get a brand new puppy, like that dog that you adopt is going to have it's going to have a whole life worth of experiences that you almost have to overcome in certain ways, to train it, versus a brand new puppy, which is like you can just start from zero and essentially have a blank slate. So yeah, I do think there's an element of new blood kind of changing that culture. And having both happen at the same time would be the most ideal scenario. You have new blood coming in, and they're generally going to be more incentivized to do just normal. I mean, this is almost like normal. Like it's normal to go on X and just like a bunch of tweets that you actually like. Like you read something, you're like, oh, I like that like button. But for us on Hive, I feel like upvoting and liking things has become a very like, well, what am I going to get in terms of rewards if I like this? You're not liking things because you like it. So it's it's become almost a little political, almost a little like, what's it going to do for me? So yeah, I think doing both at the same time is really the ideal situation at the end of the day.